Shard 1. Eïn Martz. In the depressurization chamber stood a stocky, slender silhouette. From her build, accentuated by the carbon scapular reinforcements of her wide suit, down to her heavy molecular attraction boots, nothing could suggest that a woman was beneath all that armor. Nothing, except the belt to which was attached the safety grapple that kept her tethered to her ship's anchors during her maintenance expeditions. Despite the bulk of her suit and her strong build, that belt cinching the contours of her waist hinted at the most harmonious curves. It was adorned with a few compact pouches made of an old Kevlar-like material that had been produced on the planet Earth several hundred millennia ago. A small percentage of her genetic heritage pointed to distant ancestors from that region of the B51 galaxy, but she knew little about that small, primitive civilization which, at the dawn of its space conquest, had rushed toward its own nuclear self-destruction because of a few internal conflicts. Only a few elites of that species and scattered mercenaries would have settled in other systems or still wandered the cosmos. Today, it was nothing more than a cluster of radioactive debris orbiting a completely abandoned single star system. Be that as it may, she kept her antimatter activation key and her neutron regulator in her belt, used to manually recalibrate the settings of her old TYRS model ship before and after traveling through an exchanger. She could have opted for a more cutting-edge model, but she still felt a certain satisfaction at the controls of those small, enduring models with timeless efficiency. Removing her radiation-resistant, tinted helmet with a sure hand, she first revealed a magnificent, protruding, massive and vigorous neck, adorned with dense, firmly anchored trapezius muscles. Then appeared a determined jaw softened by rounded contours and a small chin above which rested two delicate, full lips like the petals of the flowers found on the lush planets of the Arist II system. They seemed to constantly wear a subtle, crooked smile. A finely drawn, upturned nose gave her a slightly mischievous air. Her large feline eyes, jet black and deep, framed by long, equally lustrous curved lashes and thick, arched, no less pronounced brows, seemed to gaze into an infinite abyss with unchanging serenity. Short, coarse hair, as dark as her gaze, let a long, slightly wavy lock spill over the left side of her face. On the same side ran a slight cut winding from below her left eye along a firm cheekbone down to the most immaculate of beauty marks at the corner of her lips. Now that the chamber was filtered, the automatic disassembly of her suit activated, and Eïn Martz raised her arms to facilitate the work of the gravitational attractor, which made the rigid parts of her armor float to their maintenance compartment. She then entered a second chamber where she completely removed her hermetic undersuit, placed it in an electromagnetic device, and stepped into a vertical tank filled with a uniformly floating plasma liquid from which a blue-green vapor emanated. On near contact with her skin, the liquid exfoliated every pore of the slightest micro-impurity. Eïn Martz stepped out and stretched her steel arms above her body. The scene was unreal. Eïn Martz came from a primordial planet where gravity was 1.7 g. This had given her a physique that, though dense in its bone structure and stocky in its muscle mass harmoniously distributed across her athletic silhouette, exuded a grace overflowing with eroticism. From her hands, full of the dexterity gained from the manual tasks she loved to undertake, emanated a strength and vitality that in no way dimmed the femininity of her delicate yet firm fingers. Her agile wrists continued into thick, fibrous forearms, and muscular arms attached to magnificent, sculpted, rounded shoulders. Her athletic back wrapped around a waist that was slender yet compact and supple, flaring toward wide hips leading to massive thighs full of strength and tone. Her lifted chest, firmed by harmonious and powerful muscle fibers along her protruding collarbones, naturally pointed the nipples of her immaculate white breasts toward the sky. A sculptural and graceful posterior perfectly balanced her frame, and the curve of her calves traced sublime arabesques on either side of her knees, ending in small, rounded feet crossed by protruding veins brimming with health. After putting on her indoor clothes, Eïn went to the cockpit and settled comfortably at the controls. Only a few million km separated her from Red Sun. Now that the ship was recalibrated to subluminal speeds, she could enjoy handling her ship as she pleased for the next 2 hours at pilot-friendly speeds around 0.03 C. Intergalactic exchangers were a tremendous time saver, but using them and arriving from one point to another in a fraction of a second took away a certain pleasure Eïn found in subluminal travel. Skillfully navigating around celestial bodies, she progressed peacefully. No one came to U-27, let alone Red Sun. Red Sun was a small system far from any form of life, housing a small congregation of microplanets orbiting a red dwarf. One of its tiny celestial bodies, ICLA-2, hosted a few volcanoes, mountains of strange shapes, and waterfalls from which water flowed as if floating in the air due to the low gravity. Despite the presence of water, no form of life had ever developed there, and there were no exploitable resources that might interest the intergalactic congregation. The thin atmosphere, bathed in suspended particles, made the sky appear constantly dark, its sun red, and the slightest sound was muffled by the near vacuum. The air was barely breathable and did not allow for strenuous physical effort. Her ship approached ICLA-2. She slowed to 0.0014 C, crossed its nearly imperceptible thin atmosphere, slowed further throughout the stratosphere, and landed on the edge of a cliff overlooked by 2 enormous waterfalls. Her ship faced the Red Sun, which from this planet and this position in particular, appeared enormous, occupying the entire panorama. On either side of her ship, the water from the waterfalls fell as if in slow motion toward a deep basin several hundred meters below, and scattered droplets floated at random here and there. Eïn contemplated the spectacle from her cockpit. Time and space seemed suspended.